Sounds great.
Nicole and Tashona, we're here. I'm hoping to listen to developments, dreams, and accomplishments of the two of you.
Perfect. When we were logging in on your page, it says between the inhale and the exhale is peace.
Mm.
And I was like, ooh, I like that.
Oh, thank you. I've been spending some time, not a lot of time, but I've been spending some consistent time learning about the breath that's promoted at HeartMath Institute. This technique is to go for about 5.5 seconds to 6 seconds, inhaling and outhailing with the same volume of air. What happens after 10 minutes or whatever number of minutes that you sustain that in a very still position is that your heart and brain waves start to match. And it regulates your nervous system and you kind of get blissed out. But the wonderful thing is it regulates the way you perceive information, and the way you express information or communicate becomes regulated.
Wow, I like it.
Yeah, I'm hoping it helps me moderate like my ADD.
The breath work, the importance. I mean, we talk to clients all the time about the importance of breath, and getting back down to like a ground zero, and so that you can get that peace, in labor and in those hard times, and pregnancy. And I had a migraine yesterday, and as I was laying in bed, I was really trying to get my breathing under control, because when you're in pain, you tend to just and so I was counting out my breaths, and I found myself still having a hard time in that, like, okay. And I was taking like deep breaths, and then I was not able to catch, the rhythm to it. And so it took me a minute just to try to get myself down to a base level and sort of, be okay again. Breathing, and then the inhale to the exhale, and finding peace in the midst of that is all tied in together. So I love that.
There's something that I learned called the Leah Center. So when you're having an equal rise and dip that happens in radio waves, or in this case, a breathing rhythm, the average between is called the Leah Center. I think of Princess Leia. I don't know if it's spelled the same. It's an electrical or radiological term. But it's that point of peace that you're talking about.
Nice.
It's something that you were able to use your breath to help with migraine. The skills that we learn breathing, like I was a teenager when I had my baby, so I learned that breathing for childbirth early in my life, and I apply it, regularly throughout all kinds of things that come up in life.
Yeah. I find myself doulaing myself the most in my migraine spaces. So I definitely talk to myself like I talk to my clients in those painful spaces, those couple of days I have every now and then. So it's amazing how that, sort of shows up in other spaces. So
Well, and so I was thinking how this just becomes us, whether it's how we share about the importance of breath and how it impacts us, but also when Nicole, you were commenting on appreciating that comment, that statement, I was thinking about how Gail, it feels like she's nurturing us, that she's midwifing us or doulaing us, like just the way that you show up, Gail, feels very nurturing. And so all the areas, all the different things that we learn so that we can share with people to improve their experiences, we just embody, and it becomes the, more of us. So that's what I was thinking, and how all of this connects.
I was noticing how the two of you felt so embodied and grounded in your body, and how that was helping me show up. Actually, I thought, Oh, how lovely the three of us are, starting with breath and feeling, I can feel it immediately. Mm.
Good stuff.
Dueling, I did a lot of dueling in the 80s and 90s and into this century. And it's so much a reflection of, I might say the goddess in the birthing person, but their innermost core self, the self that remains after 4 centimeters dilated.
That's a good way to put it.
All the social constructs fall away, right? And then they're busy about letting go of that identity that can hang on and control life, and really finding out some raw material about themselves.
Mhm.
And I think as doulas, we're used to radiating back to them the sense of their inner strength and their abilities.
Mhm.
And afterwards, if that's able to happen, that connection is able to happen, which isn't 100% of the time, but it's most of the time. The person might attribute that to our qualities. But
Mhm.
I really think, you're attributing what you see in the mirror because I'm mirroring you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
I think we often say that though, like after somebody has a baby and they come back and they say, like, I couldn't have done it without you. And it's like, no, you absolutely could have done it without me because it wasn't me. I didn't do, the work. My goal is to simply be able to allow you to use the power that you've already have within yourself and you didn't realize it, and just to empower you to be able to rise up and do what you were meant to do and what you were able to do anyway. So,
You're really holding that image, or you're creating an emotional environment of safety for that person to let go and be themselves in that birthing situation. And the way we have birth set up doesn't often make a safe emotional environment, not to mention a physical environment. We intuitively know how important the psychology and the emotion, especially the setting of birth, is for that person to feel comfortable to let go.
mhm.
We know that. The world doesn't.
We have to convince people today that they do know that it is in there. And it's, I find the best way to do that is to invite them, not like the word I use is convince, but really it's an invitation to realizing, an invitation to owning, to allowing that to rise up. It's unfortunate that the invitation is necessary, but it's beautiful that we get to be the ones to provide the invitation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you imagine someone giving birth today, they may they may have never seen an animal give birth. They may not have been around the seasons of birth and death, this even sometimes the season of planting and harvesting.
Mhm.
And so to find out, oh, I'm going to give birth to a baby and this is somehow connected to nature and I'm going to be able to feed my baby from my body. And I mean, how does anybody get exposure to that in the typical life,
Mhm.
if they didn't grow up seeing animals, or they didn't grow up watching their own mothers give birth? Maybe
Yeah.
that's an option that some people have. And so they're looking to you as a person who believes that they can have this baby and that it's going to happen and they're going to be able to do it. And they may not have talked to anybody else in their pregnancy but you that believes that.
It's so common though.
Let me hear a little bit about your day-to-day connection to birth is. Let's talk about that so
Day-to-
people listening can know you.
yeah, day-to-day connection. That's if you ask my family, they probably would tell you it's everything. Like,
Mm.
we could be making dinner and I'm like, oh yeah, sometimes when you're in labor, this happens. Or we could be, going to the mall and I'm like, well, sometimes it just takes this much time. You just got to be patient with yourself, so there's learning to be had in this space. There's knowledge to be gained for sure, but I truly believe that the doula role, the person who's able to walk in it is just a doula. Like, put birth aside, put, whatever other type of doula they are aside. They're just that. So they're a supportive person. They're a guide, a person that's willing to walk with people. It just is a part of who you are, and you're blessed if you find a space that you can apply it to consistently like we do in birth. So, what brings me to this space is just the joy of being able to help and guide people through this season that may feel uncertain or scary, or that's just a space that's unknown to them. So I really enjoy walking with people, and I do know a lot of stuff, but it's not my goal to tell you all the stuff I know. It's my goal to help you to discover the stuff that you don't even know that you know, and walk in that and own that. So I guess
Mhm.
that's a big part of my who I am as a doula day to day. Like,
That's
you
beautiful.
don't see birth every day. You don't
No.
see, but you're still a doula every day.
Mhm.
Yeah. 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 That's a beautiful description, Tashona. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I like what you said about it not necessarily having to pertain to birth because I find myself being sort of like a person that a lot of people come to in different areas of their life for support, whether it's like relationship or work or clearly birth. They tend to say, like, there's something about you that, allows me to come and be vulnerable or to, be able to share or ask for guidance. And so I think that does come with that space. And so to just doula anybody in any space, there's almost like you said before, Gail, like this energy that you can feel about a person. And so we all give off something. And so for others to be able to recognize it, even sometimes strangers will
Yeah.
open up. It's just something that's sort of in you as you move through life that touches other people in some way that allows you to show up to say, like, I am here and I am open to like help or guide, or like Tashona said, help you discover what you already have within yourself. And so it's just sort of sometimes, like you said, a mirror of sorts to allow people to be able to like grow in themselves and just help them in those spaces.
I'm so moved that we're talking about this nuance of mirroring. And when I started spinning babies and I started teaching this little workshop that I created, I didn't tell people how I got onto this exactly. I was directed from a question: how can I help posterior labors be easier for people giving birth so that their expectations of birth can be met, in spite of the baby's head maybe not being angled in their pelvis quite easily. And the part I didn't talk about, because I didn't know how to talk about it without sounding woo woo, was that I would be quiet at a birth, stand next to someone giving birth. I may or may not touch them, depending on their comfort. Or sometimes people say, can you put your hand on my sacrum, the lower back? And I could feel movement there, where if we touch lightly, we can feel like an underwater river moving through their body. Their bones are not static, their bones are in motion. And this would help me understand how advanced their labor was, um, how flexible or non-flexible their sacrum and their pelvis was. And I could feel the tension or the relaxation in their skin, whether whether in their shoulders or in their hips or the legs. And of course, they'd be talking about what they're feeling. Um, and so I had another question that I kept pretty private. If my body felt like their body, what would be happening inside me? And because I had a baby early, I had had a birth experience to have a sense. Although with many first babies, it's just like an overwhelming sensation that's not as, like with my second one, I was like, that's a head. Oh, that little thing was a shoulder going past a bone. With my first one, it was just like, oh, I can't
Yeah.
tell. And so it was, what if my body felt like their body, what would be happening? And it wasn't until I've been going to births for 10 or 20 years that there was a discovery in Italy in a lab, kind of difficult to talk about because there were monkeys in the lab and they had little electrical sensors on their brains because they were trying to learn how to read the thoughts of these monkeys, I guess.
Right.
And then it was a break time, and the person that was with the monkeys went out of the room and came back, and there was a bowl of bananas that all the monkeys could see. And the guy came up and picked up a banana to eat. And because the monkeys had these things on their head, they could see that the parts of the monkeys' brains that stimulated were the eating and chewing and tasting parts of their brain. So even though they weren't eating and chewing, their brain lit up as if they were.
Mm.
And they called this mirror neurons. And I heard Phyllis Klaus talk about this as she was talking about prenatal and psychology of birth and giving birth. And it's how babies learn to be part of the human community is we mirror neuron with our mother. What is normal behavior? There's so many little nuances about how we behave in life. We could never learn it by verbal, this is how you behave. We learn like sit still in your chair kinds of rules. But there's so many little things that we learn from mirror neuroning. And so they discovered this. And after about 5 years of hearing this talk, I went, okay, I'm going to come out and tell the nurses and midwives and doulas at my workshop that I learned how babies rotate and how the body releases in labor from mirror neurons.
Yeah.
That's why people say, I see babies inside the womb. It's because if my body felt like that, what would be happening? And then there's a spatial element and it's such. But when you're a doula, you're mirror neuroning, and what you're talking about are the nuances of this relationship and being that mirror for the person. We're connecting. Also, now they're discovering our magnetic bodies, that we're like a North Pole, South Pole, and moving magnetic energy, every single person, but really every thing that has mass in the planet itself also has this magnetic field. And so when you say you recognize somebody, you're tuning in and resonating with their magnetic field. This feels familiar. This feels right.
Mm.
There are thoughts kind of influence that magnetic field. And so we find each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And to be able to talk about that openly means so much to me because, my grandmother was a palm reader. She was a strict Catholic woman, very conservative, but she read palms and tea leaves. And I think that was the mirror neuron connection that she had,
Mm-hmm.
and people don't want to hear about that. It sounds too weird.
Yeah. It's so real though. Even specifically thinking about birth, I 100% recognize in that, 4 or 5, I don't know where they are, right? But I'm assuming this is probably when this transitional time is happening. And there's an awareness that, we were calm and able to breathe and able to talk. And then when this shift changes, I can sense and see in that, there's worry, there's no, this is not right. And if I can help them to remember it is right. All is still well, right? If I can mirror for them that it's still safe. You're still supported. You're still not alone. In without saying it, I laugh with partners and say, now, if you notice this, you don't want to go say, hey, you're still safe. Hold my hands, right? It's just about helping them to realize that again. So it's the you breathing calmly, it's the you not getting, overworked in this moment, recognizing that this is still normal, it's flowing the way it's supposed to, then that helps them, even if you don't say a thing, to be
Mm,
like, oh yeah, I do want to be back in this support
mm,
space, this
mm.
peaceful space. And then they're like, okay, they can take that deep breath again and kind of get back into focus and keep moving again. So all of it is just mirroring. It's wonderful to put language to that.
Yeah, there were a lot of light bulbs going off when you said that. It was
Mhm.
nice to hear that. So thank you for sharing that.
What I'm hearing from both of you, and Tashona just articulated it. It's like you're mirroring and you're also holding the vision of who they are and what they're capable of, and
Yes.
inviting
Mhm.
them to restore their centering with that. They might not have had an intellectual understanding of their abilities in birth and in transforming themselves before this event, but their hormones are taking care of that. That's not a process of will. That's not a process of intellect.
Mhm.
Their body's got all this happening as long as it's not denied them. What does that moment look like if there's pregnant people listening to this? Perhaps there's a mother who's like, I might want a doula.
I think it's so important for people to talk to one multiple doulas. Like, it's such a sacred space, and it's something that I tell people you only get one birthday. Like, so you really want the person that you're connecting with to be your person. So being able to talk to multiple people to pick them, what do I ask when I'm interviewing a doula? They ask questions like, when do you go on call? Or very like technical, what are the things that you teach? But like the conversation really comes down to like, how do you feel? Like, how do you feel when you're sitting down with this person and you're exploring them being the person that's going to walk with you on the rest of your pregnancy journey and into this new space of adding to your family in a way that you never have before. And so when you have this transformative experience, is this the person that you want by your side, holding your hand and making sure that that vision that you have is, close to being met as possible,
Mm,
that may just be there to support you and lift you up in all of the ways. But it really comes back to how do you feel? And it even comes back to that on the doula side. When I hang up with somebody who's a potential client, how do I feel about them being like, was that a good exchange for me? Because if for some reason I feel like we're not a good match, then that's not going to work either. And so making sure that both of us walk away with this feeling of you're the one almost like that's my person. I had a client once say, this is my pregnancy best friend. And that's what you want to be as a doula for somebody. I may not be here for a lifetime, although that is really nice. But if I'm just here for this space in your life, I want to be your best friend where you feel like you can drop all the walls and you can be as vulnerable and open about any and everything that's happening. And sometimes that's not just pregnancy and birth, what's happening in your family structure or at work or when you go to your appointments, things like that. What does all of that look like, and being able to have your guard down in that space so that you truly can get the experience and the best out of this person that you're looking for to be alongside you in this space.
mm. I love hearing that you say it's the feeling. Like you can be asking the questions that they're important, but it isn't the doula that knows the most. So it's feeling, it's sensing. You also talked quite a bit about vulnerability. You both brought up vulnerability. Do I want to be vulnerable with a doula? Like it's interesting to think about that bridge from the person that has to hold themselves up very tightly to allow themselves to be vulnerable and do it in the presence of someone they're meeting just then.
Me personally, I may lean on the side of being in touch with my vulnerability. When my son asked me, "Mom, if you could have any superpower," like I just feel like vulnerability is my superpower because I feel like if we can all recognize that we all have this same stuff that the stuff that we're trying to protect and guard
Yeah.
all have it. And so if we are able to just let the wall down, then we can all be supportive. So you're never going to catch me embarrassed because my card was declined because I'm like, your card's been declined before too. Like, I just don't care. So like just that if we can even move that into the birth space and help women to recognize that while every birth is different, birth is just this open and they all realize it at the end. They all are like, oh, I didn't care what my clothes were, I didn't care who was in the room, they all realize it at the end, but it's hard to envision that before you've gone through it. And I've even said that, when your original question about how do you help people that are seeking a doula make that connection. And I loved everything that Nicole was saying about it's more about the feelings. But I've even said when I'm first talking to people, we might not be lifelong best friends forever, but it's very relational. I want you to feel safe with me. And I want you to not be embarrassed if you poop on the table. Like you have to feel like no matter what, there's no judgment. She's not looking at me and thinking that I did this wrong or whatever the case may be. And you will feel that with your doula. Some people have their list and they're going to interview all the people, a gazillion. And I've been someone's ninth interview before, and I was like, what are you looking for? You're asking us all these questions. And she even said, y'all are all giving kind of the same answers. And I was like, so maybe there's some different questions that you might want to ask. What is it that you're looking for this person that's going to be with you and that's going to support you? Because it's not how many births have you attended. For some people, that is what they're looking for. But for some people, it's something different from that. And so you got to figure that out first so that you cannot have to interview another 9 people. And so just making those connections and helping people realize that it's about who do you feel like you're going to be able to let your walls down with and really be vulnerable with, because that's what's going to help you to get to your end goal so much sooner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something you said made me think about, sometimes I tell people like no apologies in birth. Like they have it because they're so concerned about what they're doing and how that may appear, they tend to apologize, if they're nauseous and vomiting, or if they do poop on the table or anything, if they have to lean on you a little bit more or whatever. Oh, I'm sorry. And it's like, no apologies. If you say something a little bit more curt, than you normally would, or you scream at somebody like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do this in this moment. It's like, no apologies in birth, just be. Just be. It's okay.
You're recognizing the vulnerabilities of being a human being giving birth. And when we apologize, it's really social conditioning.
Yes.
We're if we pooped on the table at a restaurant, that would be a different matter. But in birth, we're in this very physical process. The baby's moving. For those of you listening that are wondering why on earth would somebody do that, the baby is moving past the rectum and it's going to move anything there out. So squeezing toothpaste tubes. For a doula, midwife or nurse or doctor, it's like, oh, that means the baby's close behind, and that's a reassuring moment, actually. So we're like, yep, we're seeing the next sign that we know that pretty soon we're going to see the baby. Yeah. And to be with that process, it's a very intense intimacy, isn't it? I was thinking about what you said about a pregnancy friend, or you have this intense relationship that might not last that much longer than the birth. You see them postpartum, you see them after the birth a few times. And maybe you stay in contact and maybe you don't. I'm getting to the point where I'm not going to very many births anymore. I get called in only occasionally with running, spinning babies. That it's kind of sadness, kind of an ambiguous loss. You know?
Mhm. Yeah. Isn't it crazy how that happens? So like mentioned it and then like people start going, because I was doing the same thing. I was going through my brain about, wow, this person or this birth, like that quick. I had like a whole, families that I have sort of lost touch with or I wonder about.
They're
Yeah.
intensely precious to us,
Yeah.
each and every one, even if we're not in contact.
Yeah. Yeah. So each birth leaves a little piece of themselves with you,
Yeah.
family.
Yeah, for sure. Did either of you have a baby with you had someone with you that was
My mom was with me for both.
your mom was with you? And
Mhm.
Tashona, you're saying no.
My husband was with
Yeah.
me, but I didn't have anyone in the doula space, in that support person,
That
regardless of
peer,
yeah.
that peer connection. And you had
But
your mom.
now that you ask, there was a nurse there that was very, sometimes you get a good supportive nurse, and she was very supportive. We actually did become friends. We lost touch for a little while, and maybe over the last 5 or 10 years, we've reconnected, and now we talk every now and then, and it's like,
Wow.
we feel connected, like there's been no time lost, and it was my nurse. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a place of honor forever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They
Um,
see you. You feel seen. You feel held.
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
That's huge for me, even in my personal life, and so to have that through the transformation, the huge transformational time that, from pregnancy all the way through postpartum, to know that I am seen, I am heard, I am supported, even if my ideas are, everybody else says that my ideas sound crazy, but this person is just holding me and like it's beautiful. So you
Mm.
can't help but have a bond there, even if it's not a day-to-day.
You don't need it to be day to day. It's so spiritual. It's like
Right.
your spirit's held.
Mhm.
To have someone on earth be able to recognize and hold space for your spirit to be free, to be itself.
absolutely. It's so interesting that this conversation, this piece of it is making me think about, we're in the process of opening a birth center. And in that, we were literally just talking about how all the families that we have supported have helped probably unknowingly make this dream become a reality. And how once we can, get doors open, one of the first things we want to do is be able to invite all of them back to this space that, they have helped create. It's almost an honor, or a way to honor them in the fact that we would not be in a space where it was so important for us to take this step had it not been for them allowing us to support them in the way that we were able to.
Yeah, the birth center was, at the time that we were supporting them, this was far, we both have been, it's a decade, right? We were not thinking about opening a birth center when we were supporting some of these people yet. Even though we weren't, they are absolutely still a part. Every previous experience, every previous encounter shapes and creates who we are and what we're doing next and why we're moving in this direction. And so they all are a part of this this journey, even though they didn't say a word about opening that birth center.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm. Every experience, every person that comes our way creates the shape of the arch that
Mm,
through which we walk in our next step.
Yep.
I
We're just
love that.
ever moving forward.
Yep.
I can imagine people listening are going to be really interested. What's the name of the birth center? When's it opening? Where is it? Who's going to greet them at the door?
Those are all very good questions. So the name is Well Body in Birth. And it hopefully will be located in Indian Land, South Carolina, which is just across the border from Charlotte. So it'll be serving the greater Charlotte area. So everywhere from sort of like north of Charlotte into the South Carolina side. And
Okay.
so hopefully one of us will be there to greet them when they come through the door.
Mhm.
When is it opening is a great question. We hope we have found the perfect place. And so we're just sort of doing all of the due diligence in the background so that we can like fully announce like this is it, this is home. It certainly feels like home for us. We would be opening like end of year, beginning of 2025, but hopefully end of year this year is our hope.
Well, body and birth, WELL. When we were dreaming up the name for the birth center, and names are so important, and we both believe in that deeply. And so we were toying around with all the different names and um, how much the word well can hold, whether it's us being well in our bodies, healthy and, whole, but also the well that holds the stuff, right? The deep knowing, the things that flow up and out of us. There was just so much in that word that we were like, oh yeah, this is it. So we're encouraging and hoping that everybody that passes through, all the families, all the community, other birth workers, everybody that comes through puts a drop in the well, they add to it, they pour out from it. So we're really looking forward to bringing that to the community.
Your vision and your knowing, just the way the two of you radiate, where two are gathered together, you're drawing this into reality. I just totally believe in you. Fully believe in you.
Thank you.
It's very felt. It's a very felt sense that I think that listeners can also feel that this is a reality that you're creating. And
Yeah.
the physical part of it has to follow so much vision and so much sensed, embodied belief.
Yeah.
Those two together.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes because we see it, we feel it, it's here. And so sometimes when we talk to people, they're like, oh, where's it at?
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, wait, there's not an actual place yet. When I think about well body, I think that it's going to be such a unique space because it's a birth center that is doula owned or led or however you want to.
Ah,
There's a few that are hospital owned, but most of them are midwifery owned and led. And while we will 100% have a midwifery model and the midwives will be there, but we are coming from a perspective of doulas that is going to make it much more important for us to really center families and make sure that support of the families is the biggest thing. So, what is it that you need in order to help make this experience the best for you? So, I really feel like that's going to be something so special for people to be able to feel and experience and walk away from with that empowerment and with that I did embodied experience. I'm so excited about the fact that we're gonna be able to support people even on that next level. So,
so you'll have midwifery and doula services. What
mhm.
else will people come in for?
Right. We're doing a wellness combo. So, I'm a massage therapist. Nicole supports people from fertility. So there's so many different areas, childbirth education. I mean, if
Yeah.
it's birth, we're trying to help to support you towards it. So a lot of what else, Nicole? What am I forgetting?
We primarily deal with like everything fertility to postpartum and that perinatal space and what we do now and in the doula space, but being able to add extra perinatal providers. So we want to be able to have a space for, say, if you're a therapist and deal, like we know therapists that deal with birth trauma, or if you're a chiropractor or anything else that just in that perinatal space where that's your niche. So having those type of people also being able to have space within our facility to be able to support people on a further end. And then we want to have a community space. So we know some people who do perinatal yoga, or they teach other education classes that we do not. So being able just to sort of have a full in-house everything that is able to support anybody that's trying to grow their family.
That's really gorgeous. Do either of you have connections with Spinning Babies? Spinning Babies would love to support this and just be present with this beautiful work you're doing.
Yeah, I'm here for Spinning Babies. I felt when I first encountered Spinning Babies, I was like, yes, yes. As a massage therapist, understanding the soft tissues and how that influences space in our bodies, it just spoke so much to me. So yes, I'm a Spinning Babies aware practitioner, and share all of Spinning Babies with everybody that I can, people that I'm supporting and people that I'm not supporting. It's just a great way for people to make that connection for themselves. Sometimes being able to put words to what they're feeling and helping them to understand, well, like you said, what are you feeling in your body? What, maybe what you're feeling is likely this, and it's a pull, or there's a need for a stretch, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, Spinning Babies is a huge resource, and all of our clients and beyond definitely get that. So we will absolutely be staying in touch.
Will you have aware practitioner sessions?
I'm gonna keep doing that. Right now it's mobile, so I go into people's homes and do it. So yeah, they will come to the center likely. So sure, absolutely.
And for people that don't know, Spinning Babies Aware Practitioners is following the massage therapist has their core knowledge, and this is an addendum that addresses fetal positioning in ways that's non-invasive, non-manipulative of the baby, just to create space for the baby so the baby can put themselves into the most optimal position available. Thanks for letting me have that be part of the talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm telling you, my last maybe 3 or 4 massages, people have found me because they were looking for that deeper support, not just a ache here or there, but baby was in a little bit of a wonky position that they would like to create space and see if baby wants to move. But all of my clients, I really appreciate them trusting and, not feeling the need to force, but trust what babies are wise. And I'm just able to, a lot of times you feel like you got to help the people to know this, but the people that are finding me are like, I trust what's going on, and I just want to help to create some space. And if things happen, then great. And if they don't, then we'll be going on this other path. So, but yes, and they are then sharing. So definitely people in the area that need a little bit of deeper support in that fetal positioning space are finding this
Finding you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Finding well body.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a unique skill, to address pregnancy, to be able to touch a pregnant mother, to be able to do this in such a nurturing, gentle, non-invasive way, but have such a profound effect on their well-being, their nervous system, and also anatomy, so that tensions and torsions are relieved and baby says, oh, thank you, now I can get the back of my head down where it counts. Wow, this is really going to be a full service birth center.
Yes.
Yeah, and the community space is really vital, and the bodywork birth convergence is really vital. Just it's very much can be a model for other people to copy what you're doing if they feel so moved and ambitious, because I know you're working very hard.
My goodness. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
It's like pregnancy. We often talk about like how this journey is very much like the pregnancy journey, and like the things that we have been going through. And when we first started, where we thought like, oh, this is going to be easy and everything else. And as we've been like pushed and pulled and, okay, well, we got over this. We were through the first trimester. And so there's just all the things. It's we're really like just laboring. And so
Mhm.
this will definitely be a birth of all the dreams and all the hard work.
Yeah, we've
When
had our fair share of round ligament pain and lightning crotch and all the stuff. But
And
you know,
yeah,
more.
there's gonna be a baby at the end, so it's good.
sometimes you're working, and you think you're almost there, and somebody says you're not fully dilated yet.
Yep.
Exactly.
Well, thank you both for coming on and creating this beauty. Oh my goodness. And what's next? Where do people find you?
So right now you can find us, we have our individual doula practices that you can find us through. So I'm at Viumbe Birth and Wellness on Instagram and Facebook and Google. You could find me there, Viumbe Birth and Wellness. And then Nicole.
Bloom.birthing.fertility. I'm like, because fertility comes first, but then it's a whole thing. But but it's bloom.birthing.fertility on same thing on Instagram and Facebook and on Google. And then on the birth center side, we're Well Body and Birth, which is on Instagram and Facebook and Google as well.
Mm.
I'm probably a bit of our chatty one. Well, Nicole can get to going too. And so we're more than happy to support and help and answer questions if people have. And our community has been great so far with sharing resources with us that we welcome for sure to help the project keep moving forward. And so we look forward to hearing from everybody and hearing their questions, hearing their encouragement. That's been so helpful when people are like, you're doing great, keep at it, especially on the days that, there's an ache or a pain. That extra encouragement has really been helpful. So we appreciate you for sharing this platform with us for sure, and the support that you're offering to us and our whole community. It's just been so beautiful to watch it come together.
Thank you. Thank you, Tashona. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank
I
you.
just open my heart to help support, just to send my energy to support the best in your endeavors. They're very beautiful. This is
Thank you.